Ladies and gentlemen, let me begin with a question that will shake the walls of your heart. What kind of foundation are you building your home on? Because the strength of any house isn't in the walls, it's in the foundation. And when it comes to family, the role of a godly wife is one of the most powerful foundations God has ever designed. And faith is the anchor. Faith as the anchor is not simply about believing in God when everything is going well. It is about holding steady when life's storms rage around you. An anchor secures a ship in turbulent waters, preventing it from drifting aimlessly or crashing against the rocks. In the same way, faith in God keeps a person grounded when fear, uncertainty, or adversity threatens to shake them. For a godly wife, this anchor is vital because she carries influence in her household. When challenges come, financial struggles, family disagreements, health battles, or emotional pain, her faith becomes the stabilizing force that prevents her from sinking into despair. Faith is not passive, it is active trust. It is choosing to lean on God's promises rather than relying solely on human understanding. When storms rise, fear whispers lies. This won't work out. You are not strong enough. God has forgotten you. But faith responds with God's truth. He will never leave me nor forsake me. With God, all things are possible, and His strength is made perfect in my weakness. This kind of faith is not blind optimism, but rooted confidence in God's character. He has proven Himself faithful through generations, and that history of faithfulness is what makes faith such a strong anchor. A godly wife who makes faith her anchor sets the tone for her entire family. Her husband sees stability in her trust, and it strengthens him to lead with courage. Her children observe her peace in the midst of storms, and they learn to find security in God rather than in circumstances. Faith becomes a legacy passed down, a torch lit in dark times that continues to shine for generations. Without faith, fear becomes the captain of the ship, steering life into chaos. With faith, even when the winds blow fiercely, the anchor holds firm and the household does not collapse. Faith as an anchor also transforms the way a woman views herself. Instead of defining her worth by comparison, insecurity, or societal standards, she defines herself through God's truth. She knows she is loved, chosen, and equipped for every season of life. When faith anchors her identity, she resists the temptation to be swayed by opinions or circumstances. She no longer feels she has to prove herself constantly because she trusts that God is guiding her steps. This inner assurance radiates outward, giving her a quiet strength that cannot be manufactured. Moreover, faith as an anchor allows her to walk in peace, even when the outcome is uncertain. It does not mean she ignores reality, but it means she rests in the reality of who God is. She can pray over her family with confidence, knowing that God hears her. She can wait with patience, knowing that delays do not mean denials. She can move forward with boldness, knowing that even if she does not see the full picture, God has already designed the path ahead. This kind of peace is contagious. It fills the atmosphere of the home and shields the family from being overwhelmed by fear. Ultimately, faith as the anchor reminds her that she is not carrying the weight of life alone. She is tethered to a God who is unshakable, unmovable, and unstoppable. That connection allows her to stand firm when others would fall apart. It allows her to endure hardships with grace and to celebrate victories with humility. And in choosing faith as her anchor, she becomes a living example of trust in God's promises, not only for herself, but also for everyone who looks up to her. Respect is strength. Respect as strength is not about weakness or submission in the way the world often portrays it. It is about understanding the power that comes from honoring and valuing others, especially within the covenant of marriage. When respect is rooted in godliness, it becomes a tool that builds up rather than tears down. A godly wife who practices respect is not surrendering her voice. She is amplifying the harmony in her home. Respect is strength under control, choosing to speak life instead of criticism, choosing to build rather than break, choosing unity over division. Respect brings stability into relationships. A husband who feels respected is empowered to lead with courage, confidence, and clarity. His ability to thrive is directly tied to the atmosphere around him, and respect is the oxygen that fuels his spirit. When a wife chooses to affirm instead of attack, she strengthens the foundation of trust in her marriage. Her respect does not mean she agrees with everything or ignores faults. It means she addresses situations with dignity, wisdom, and grace. Respect becomes a bridge that connects two hearts, even in times of conflict, allowing love to remain central while working through differences. Respect also reflects the character of Christ. Throughout Scripture, respect is not optional. It is commanded. To respect is to recognize the God-given value in another person, treating them with honor regardless of emotion in the moment. A godly wife demonstrates respect by the way she communicates, the way she listens, and the way she responds. Harsh words may feel justified in heated situations, but respect chooses a softer answer that turns away wrath. This restraint is not weakness. It requires strength to control the tongue and humility to seek peace over pride. Respect as strength extends beyond marriage into every aspect of family life. Children who witness a respectful atmosphere grow up learning how to honor authority, value others, and walk in humility. A wife who shows respect to her husband models the behavior she hopes her children will carry into their own relationships. Her actions teach that respect is not dependent on perfection, but on commitment to love and honor, even when things are difficult. In this way, respect becomes generational strength passed down through example. Another dimension of respect is self-respect. A woman who respects herself by living according to God's truth sets the standard for how she should be treated. She does not allow disrespectful behavior to define her because she knows her worth in God's eyes. This self-respect enables her to give respect freely without fear of being diminished. It is not a one-sided act, but a reflection of her inner security. When she respects herself, she brings strength to the relationship because she is not acting out of insecurity or desperation, but out of confidence rooted in God's design. Respect as strength also fuels unity. In a culture where competition and comparison often divide couples, respect draws them closer. Instead of tearing each other down, they lift each other up. Instead of striving for control, they strive for cooperation. Respect allows a marriage to function as a true partnership where both voices matter and both roles are honored. This unity strengthens not only the couple, but also the family and community around them. At its core, respect as strength is about alignment with God's order. It acknowledges that relationships flourish when honor is given where it is due. It recognizes that words have the power to either destroy or restore, and it chooses restoration. It values peace over conflict, love over pride, and partnership over division. By walking in respect, a godly wife demonstrates immense strength, shaping her home into a place of trust, honor, and lasting love. Thus, nurturing spirit is the quality that transforms a house into a home, turning ordinary moments into opportunities for growth, healing, and love. It is not just about meeting physical needs. It is about cultivating an environment where hearts can flourish and souls can rest. A godly wife who carries a nurturing spirit becomes the heartbeat of her family, providing comfort, encouragement, and guidance in ways that strengthen every member of the household. Her presence is a source of calm in chaos. Her words are seeds of hope, and her actions are reminders that love is a verb, not just a feeling. A nurturing spirit begins with intentional investment. Just as a gardener plants seeds and waters them daily, a wife with this spirit sows encouragement, patience, and compassion into her family. She understands that growth takes time, and she does not give up when results are not immediate. Instead, she trusts that consistent love will eventually produce fruit. Her nurturing is not forced. It flows naturally from a heart committed to seeing her family thrive. She pays attention to the small details, listening when someone feels unheard, comforting when someone feels broken, and celebrating even the smallest victories. This spirit also creates a safe atmosphere. In a world filled with harsh voices and constant pressure, the home becomes a refuge when it is filled with nurture. Children feel secure because they know their mother's love is unwavering. A husband feels supported because he knows his wife stands beside him, not against him. The nurturing spirit builds a foundation of trust that allows openness and vulnerability. When mistakes are made, nurture responds with guidance instead of condemnation, correction with love instead of anger. This atmosphere does not ignore discipline, but frames it in a way that builds character rather than crushing spirit. A nurturing wife also strengthens through words. Words are powerful. They can wound deeply or heal completely. A nurturing spirit chooses to speak words that restore confidence, bring clarity, and encourage faith. She does not use her voice to belittle or control, but to uplift and inspire. Her words remind her family of who they are in God's eyes, not just how they appear in the moment. By choosing her words carefully, she creates a culture of affirmation that shapes how her family sees themselves and how they face the world. Nurturing spirit is not limited to the family. It overflows into the community. A woman who nurtures carries compassion beyond her own home, extending kindness to friends, neighbors, and those in need. Her life becomes a testimony of God's love in action, and her ability to encourage others makes her a beacon of hope. This outward focus does not drain her. Instead, it multiplies her impact as others are drawn to the peace and strength that flow from her heart. Self-care is also an essential part of nurturing. A woman cannot pour into others if she is empty herself. A nurturing spirit recognizes the importance of staying connected to God, resting when necessary, and nourishing her own soul. This balance allows her to give out of abundance rather than exhaustion. Her strength does not come from trying harder, but from drawing closer to God, who supplies her with the grace and patience needed for each day. Ultimately, nurturing spirit is about shaping an atmosphere of love that endures. It is not confined to one season of life, but continues through every stage. Raising children, supporting a husband, encouraging grown children, and mentoring younger women. It creates ripple effects that extend far beyond the walls of the home, influencing future generations. A godly wife who embraces a nurturing spirit leaves behind a legacy of love, strength, and faith that cannot be erased. Ask godly wisdom, for godly wisdom is not the same as human knowledge or intelligence. It is the ability to see life through God's perspective and make decisions aligned with His truth. Knowledge gathers facts, but wisdom applies those facts in a way that produces life, peace, and purpose. A godly wife who pursues wisdom is not swayed by every opinion, trend, or fleeting emotion. Instead, she filters her choices through the lens of Scripture and prayer. This wisdom becomes a compass, guiding her in every situation, from family decisions to personal growth, keeping her steps steady even when the path is uncertain. Godly wisdom begins with reverence for God. Scripture declares that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, meaning true wisdom starts by acknowledging God's authority and surrendering to His will. A woman who seeks this wisdom knows that her understanding is limited, but God's perspective is infinite. She does not depend solely on her own insight. She leans on His word for clarity. In times of conflict, she asks what will bring peace rather than fuel division. In times of uncertainty, she waits for God's direction rather than rushing ahead on her own. This reverence produces a humility that allows her to be teachable, open to correction, and ready to grow. A godly wife applies wisdom in her communication. She recognizes that timing and tone are just as important as truth. She chooses when to speak and when to remain silent, understanding that not every situation requires immediate words. Her wisdom guides her to avoid harsh responses that escalate conflict and instead use gentle words that bring resolution. She builds her household with discernment, speaking encouragement when her family feels weak and offering correction when necessary, but with love that restores rather than condemns. In this way, wisdom guards the atmosphere of the home, keeping it free from unnecessary strife. Wisdom also influences decision-making in practical matters. From finances to parenting, a woman who relies on godly wisdom seeks God's guidance before making choices. She does not chase after quick fixes or short-term gratification. She considers the long-term impact of her actions. She teaches her children to value integrity over convenience, patience over haste, and righteousness over popularity. Her choices reflect foresight, and she models for her family what it means to live responsibly under God's direction. Another aspect of godly wisdom is discernment in relationships. A wise woman understands the power of influence, so she surrounds herself with people who encourage growth rather than lead her astray. She knows when to draw boundaries, when to extend forgiveness, and when to let go of relationships that hinder her walk with God. Her discernment protects her home from unhealthy influences, ensuring that her family is not led into confusion or compromise. This discernment is not rooted in suspicion, but in a deep awareness of God's Spirit, who gives her insight into what is hidden beneath the surface. Godly wisdom also equips her to handle trials with grace. Life will bring seasons of disappointment, conflict, and loss, but wisdom enables her to respond with faith instead of fear. She does not see trials as the end, but as opportunities for growth. Her example teaches her family how to endure difficulties with patience, trusting that God is working, even when circumstances do not make sense. Wisdom gives her strength to stand firm and courage to continue moving forward, knowing that storms are temporary, but God's promises are eternal. The legacy of godly wisdom extends beyond the present moment. When a woman walks in wisdom, she leaves a pattern for others to follow. Her children learn how to make choices rooted in truth. Her husband benefits from her insight and discernment. Her community gains from her counsel and encouragement. Wisdom shapes her influence, allowing her to impact lives far beyond her own household. This kind of wisdom does not fade with age, but deepens over time, becoming a crown of honor that blesses generations. Character over appearance. Character over appearance is the reminder that what is inside a person holds greater value than what is seen on the outside. Beauty fades, charm can deceive, but character lasts for a lifetime and leaves a legacy for generations. A godly wife understands that while appearance may attract attention, it is character that sustains love, trust, and respect. She does not neglect her outward appearance, but she refuses to let it define her worth. Instead, she invests in qualities that reflect God's heart: integrity, kindness, faithfulness, and humility. These traits cannot be taken away by time, and they outshine even the most admired outward beauty. Placing character over appearance is a deliberate choice in a world that constantly pressures women to meet unrealistic standards. Society often measures worth by physical looks, style, or popularity, but true strength lies in godly character. A woman who understands this does not allow herself to be enslaved by comparisons or insecurities. She recognizes that her value is not measured by outward approval, but by God's view of her heart. When she embraces this truth, she walks with confidence not rooted in vanity, but in divine identity. This confidence shapes how she carries herself, how she interacts with others, and how she builds her home. Character also creates stability in relationships. A marriage built on appearance alone cannot withstand the storms of life, because looks cannot solve conflicts or heal wounds. Character, however, provides the strength needed to endure trials. A woman who prioritizes honesty over pretense, faithfulness over temptation, and humility over pride brings strength into her marriage. Her husband can trust her not because of how she looks, but because of who she is. Trust grows when promises are kept, when words align with actions, and when loyalty is proven in difficult times. This kind of character sustains love long after physical beauty has changed. Another dimension of character is how it impacts influence. A woman's appearance may capture attention, but her character determines whether people will follow her example. Children especially are shaped not by what their mother looks like, but by how she lives. They notice integrity when she keeps her word, kindness when she shows compassion, and resilience when she faces struggles with faith. These lessons take root in their hearts, teaching them that true greatness is found in character, not in outward display. A woman who chooses character over appearance leaves her children with a standard far higher than cultural expectations. Choosing character also provides inner peace. When a woman strives only to impress others with her appearance, she is often left anxious, insecure, and unsatisfied. But when she pursues godly character, She rests in the knowledge that she is living in alignment with God's design. This peace radiates outward, giving her a sense of dignity that cannot be shaken by criticism or comparison. She is not controlled by trends or external approval because her worth is anchored in God's truth. This inner calm strengthens her in seasons of change, allowing her to remain steady when others feel unstable. Character over appearance also speaks to legacy. Physical beauty is temporary. It fades with age and can be altered by circumstances. But character shapes how a person is remembered. A godly wife who invests in her character leaves behind a reputation of faithfulness, wisdom, and love that outlives her physical presence. Her family will speak of her with honor not because of her looks, but because of the life she lived. Her influence will ripple through generations as her children and grandchildren walk in the example she set. Appearance may be forgotten, but character leaves an eternal imprint. Ultimately, choosing character over appearance is about aligning with God's priorities. God looks at the heart, not the outward image, and He calls His daughters to cultivate inner beauty that reflects His Spirit. When a woman embraces this truth, she becomes free to live authentically, focusing her energy on becoming more like Christ rather than chasing temporary standards. Her life becomes a testimony that real beauty flows from within, and her example reminds others that what truly matters is not how you look, but who you are. As mutual responsibility in marriage is the understanding that both husband and wife carry divine roles that complement and strengthen each other. A godly wife does not walk alone, nor does her husband. Their partnership is designed by God to be one of balance, unity, and shared responsibility. Mutual responsibility means that both individuals contribute to the well-being of the marriage and the family, not out of competition, but out of cooperation. It is not about one carrying the entire burden, but about each carrying their part with love, humility, and commitment. A key part of mutual responsibility is honoring each other's God-given roles. A wife is called to walk in faith, respect, nurture, and wisdom, while a husband is called to love sacrificially, lead with integrity, and provide protection and covering for his family. These roles are not meant to create hierarchy, but harmony. When both embrace their responsibilities, the marriage reflects God's design, a partnership where each strengthens the other. The husband is lifted by his wife's support, and the wife is covered by her husband's love. This creates a cycle of encouragement that allows the family to flourish. Mutual responsibility also means accountability. Both husband and wife are accountable to God for how they steward their relationship. A godly wife cannot dismiss her role any more than a godly husband can neglect his. Each must commit to living faithfully, not only for their own sake, but for the sake of the covenant they entered before God. This accountability produces maturity, because both understand that their choices affect not just themselves, but their spouse, their children, and even future generations. Accountability keeps them focused on what truly matters and prevents selfishness from taking root. Another aspect of mutual responsibility is shared sacrifice. Marriage is not always easy, and both husband and wife must be willing to lay aside personal preferences for the sake of unity. A wife may need to sacrifice time, energy, or desires to support her husband's vision, while a husband may need to set aside his own ambitions to care for his wife's needs. These sacrifices are not signs of weakness, but of strength, demonstrating love in action. Mutual responsibility ensures that sacrifice is not one-sided, but shared, creating balance and fairness within the relationship. Mutual responsibility also strengthens communication. A healthy marriage requires honesty, openness, and respect in every conversation. Both husband and wife are responsible for listening as much as they speak, for seeking understanding rather than winning arguments. When disagreements arise, mutual responsibility prevents blame and encourages solutions. A wife who understands her role does not withdraw in silence, and a husband who values his role does not dominate with pride. Instead, they meet at the middle ground, guided by love and wisdom. This shared approach to communication becomes the glue that holds their relationship together through every season. Mutual responsibility extends to raising a family. Both parents share the responsibility of teaching, guiding, and modeling faith to their children. It is not the role of one alone, but of both together to create an environment where values are lived out and spiritual growth is nurtured. A wife may excel in nurturing daily needs, while a husband may lead in providing direction and vision. But together they create balance. When children see both parents equally invested, they learn the importance of partnership, respect, and unity. Mutual responsibility thus becomes a legacy passed on to the next generation. At its core, mutual responsibility is about love expressed through service. It is a daily choice to prioritize the well-being of the other person, to carry the weight together, and to walk in unity rather than division. A godly wife embraces her responsibilities not as a burden but as a calling, and she encourages her husband to do the same. Together they reflect God's covenant love, showing the world that marriage is strongest when both partners understand, accept, and fulfill their responsibilities with joy and faithfulness.